Testing. Yes, working. Yeah, good. Hello, testing. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no worries.
So I actually want to add a particular initially it was women's rights, now so it's awareness and also we do use employers with freebies which have been within our setup. A lot of them, all employers smaller. If you do go say cleaners and shopping malls and I'm based yeah, but now I just want to start doing a couple things. Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Thanks,
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming along on what's a little bit of a dreary night. I promise the evening will be very entertaining, very informative, and you'll walk away satisfied. I just want to start by telling you who I am. I'm Lou Vacchiello. I'm Director on the board of Settlement Series International, and I'm also the CEO of Metro Assist, one of the migrant resource centres that is a member of the SSI plan. So again, welcome. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we're meeting this evening, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who have cared for this land for time immemorial. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and commit ourselves to a future with reconciliation and renewal at its heart. So a little bit about Settlement Services International. It's a community-based organisation, not for profit, which provides a range of services in areas of refugee settlement, asylum seeker assistance, housing, multicultural foster care, disability support and employment services in New South Wales. We're here tonight for the first of the 2016 events in the SSI Speakers Series, an initiative that's aimed to create greater understanding and awareness of issues impacting refugees and asylum seekers living in our community. Tonight's discussion brings together 4 inspirational speakers, who I'm sure will be introduced to you very, very shortly, who will share their stories of resilience, courage and determination. As we welcome refugees in Australia, this evening's panel is a celebration of the achievements of many former refugees who have made this country their home. But it's also an invitation to understand and reflect on the factors that have contributed to their success. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank this distinguished panel of speakers who are joining us tonight. I'd also like to let you know about this evening, that this evening is being recorded and streamed live on the internet, so you'll see the cameras, and Callum will be dashing around with his camera as well. So you can also assist the conversation by following it on Twitter using the hashtag, this says say slowly.
How do you spell that?
Hashtag SSI Speakers Series. Got it? Okay. I'd like to now introduce our panel facilitator for tonight, who is Sarah Malik. Sarah Malik is a freelance journalist and writer. Her writing has been featured in the Sydney Morning Herald, the ABC's The Drum, The Age, The Australian and The Guardian. All the good guys, right, Sarah? In 2015, she worked on a series of stories with The Guardian's Ben Doherty on Egyptian asylum seeker Sayed Abdelatif. The stories were recognised as finalists for journalism excellence in the 2015 Migration and Settlement Awards, in the media category for the 2015 Australian Human Rights Commission Awards, and won highly commended at the 2015 UN Media Peace Prize Awards. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us tonight, and all of the speakers on the panel. And now it's over to Sarah.
Thank you so much. So like I've been introduced, my name's Sarah. I'm a journalist. I've reported on asylum in this country and talked to a lot of people in Australia's detention centres in an effort to really give a human face to an issue that's become really one of the most divisive, heated and polarising political issues of our time. And unlike many Australians, my only interaction with the asylum seeker issue has really been through the media, the stop the boat rhetoric of politicians, the images of looming boats on the horizon, and these endless debates that really seem to miss something very human and very essential to this epic story, really, of people and their ancient mode of migration across seas. A story that really evokes something out of a Greek tragedy almost, like Jason and the Argonauts, where the hero has to survive arduous conditions and perilous sea journeys before performing feats for the approval of capricious gods, in this case immigration, in their search for the golden fleece. That's why it's really my pleasure today to host this panel and speak to these really four amazing individuals who in their own words can really talk about their own stories, which is really, for me, not a debate about migration or asylum, but really the human story of people and their quest to seek new horizons, people and their will to power and survival. So I'm really excited to hear from these four amazing guests and really hear about their experiences of success and resilience and hope and creating new lives after experiencing what I imagine is pretty much the most arduous experience of anyone's life, to leave everything that you know behind and start life anew in a foreign country. So to introduce our amazing guests, we have Hana Sadiq, who is an educator at the Miller Intensive Language Centre. So Hana has worked at the Miller Intensive Language Centre for more than 13 years, most recently as the School Support Liaison Officer. So she fulfills a range of responsibilities, including supporting students who are having problems at schools and families who are experiencing difficulties with language and settlement. Hana runs information groups for parents and is deeply dedicated to the parents and students she works with, as she understands how important it is to really obtain the assistance and support they require in their community language as they navigate the requirements of the schooling system. Her commitment was recognised when she received the 2013 Humanitarian Award in Education from STARTS. We also have Aminata Conteh-Biger, and she's the founder and CEO of the Aminata Maternal Foundation. So about Aminata, she also has an epic story. So in 1999, rebel forces captured Aminata during a civil war in her native Sierra Leone and held her captive for several months. When Aminata was released as part of a negotiated exchange, one of her captors still posed a serious threat to her safety. And with the UNHCR's help, she came to Australia as a refugee. On her arrival, Aminata was alone, confused and homesick, but with support from community networks and friends, she has made a home for herself in Australia. Aminata is now a UNHCR ambassador and the CEO and founder of the Aminata Maternal Foundation, an organisation established to stem maternal and newborn deaths in Sierra Leone. Thank you so much. So if you haven't heard of Deng, you're probably living under a rock, but I will introduce him. So Deng Adut is a prominent community leader and international renowned lawyer. He's been nationally recognised for his achievements, including by the New South Wales Premier Mike Bard, who invited Deng to give his powerful 2016 Australia Day address. If you haven't watched it, I recommend just going on YouTube or the internet and just reading and watching his address, which drew critical acclaim both at home and internationally. So having come to Australia as a refugee following life as a child soldier in Sudan, Deng put himself through law school and has become a formidable advocate. Deng practices in the area of criminal, family, employment and international law. He's also demonstrated a remarkable commitment to social justice, having worked at Blacktown Local Court as a liaison officer to the local Sudanese community, which provides disadvantaged community members with access to the legal justice system. Deng's life story recently featured in a viral ad for the Western Sydney University. You might have seen that too. Thank you so much, Deng, for being here. And last but not least, we have Huy Truong. He's the CEO and co-owner of the Australian Life Insurance Group. Huy fled Vietnam for Australia in 1978, and he has since developed a diverse business career as a management consultant, venture capitalist, corporate executive, and entrepreneur. Hugh is a pioneer of the Australian e-commerce industry, where he founded online retailer wishlist.com.au. He is currently the CEO and co-owner of the Australian Life Insurance Group. Hugh has an economic honours degree from Monash University and an MBA from Harvard Business School. So, yeah, I feel bad about that. And he has a particular interest in supporting refugee and educational causes. So I guess I want to open it up to the panel by, I guess, firstly asking, you know, you all have amazing stories, and I can only imagine, you know, what it takes to be able to come from those backgrounds and achieve what you have. I guess, could you kind of talk about how you dealt with the dislocation that comes with coming to a new country and having to navigate from scratch, essentially? Yeah, sure. Yeah, anyone? Yeah, Aminata.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, sure. I guess, how do you deal with, you know, the dislocation that comes from, I guess, starting life anew in a new country and starting from scratch, basically?
Oh, I think for myself personally, I deal with it. It was incredibly hard for the first time, as I believe everybody goes through adjustment, moving to a new country and learning new things. Or I think as time goes, I felt like I had to be open to the culture in Australia and be open to the lifestyle, and to be open to I can really not so much as fit in, but make a life for myself. So I think it's just in a way not giving up, or just being more optimistic about things every day, because it was a really difficult time. I think it's just day by day step for I believe every migrant, or speaking for myself personally, it was just a step by step progress, and letting people into my life, because it was not knowing people and just coming and drop in a country where you really absolutely do not have any community, because my community, I was part of the first group of refugee from Sierra Leone, so I was quite not really familiar with any sort of any other culture apart from my culture. So that was really hard. But going to church, I think that really helps me a lot, and teachers at school. So I think just letting people in, because yeah.
Yeah, as Aminata said, it is very hard when I first came, and I had 3 children, and no one was support. We didn't have any support from anyone, but I found myself, I wanted to study. The first key to success in this country was the language. So I studied English. I didn't stop. From first day, I went to school. I went to English classes. Then I finished. I went to pay. Then to private college. When I finished, I worked as a childcare for 2 years. Then I found my job at Mera. So the first thing I did is language. Language first key. And then yeah, the culture was different too. But then I said slowly, step by step, I will be, and slowly, then I felt myself quickly and belong to this country.
Then you were very young when you came, and you also had to learn how to read and write English, which must have been an incredible challenge. Could you, I guess, talk through how hard that was, and I guess what support you needed when you initially came to Australia?
I don't know whether I can actually explain how hard it is, better than it is to beautiful women here. Just stated their point of view. But Australia is not an easy country for everyone. it's hard, and it's quite hard, and I dare anyone to challenge that of living in Australia. It's not hard. But however, it is up to individuals to recognize other things that are important in Australia, things that weren't available in the country of your origin or my origin. So I look at the opportunity, and I was always hungry, body-wise and mind-wise. So I didn't have anything in general. I was just looking for a new way of living, because I once told by my parent, my mom, that I was dead. So if I'm alive and there's opportunity that is rolling around there, I'll be the first to jump on that bandwagon. And I think I'm doing it. I'm doing it better because Australia is rich in everything. Tailor resources, people that are here, we're all rich. But the problem, we seem to hinder a lot of people from my background is to revolve around the word that we commonly use in integration. And integration is, I think we should all stop using that word. It's not a nice word. It deceived the people from my background about the actual meaning, what it means. It doesn't mean that you have to accept Australian culture and let yours go, or should you accept both, as I know it, that I'm actually working on both idea to integrate. In my view, is not probably where that should be used. It should be basically inclusiveness of everyone, that we all can contribute to this nation and no one should be left behind. And it goes there, that idea of excluding others, cause trouble, cause youth to run away, and cause more problem to us. So if we all work together, and some people may question that, but I think since I start working as a lawyer and I have my own practice, my firm is actually one of the most multicultural firm in the country. There is no other black man apart from me. So I want everything to be balanced. I want to be balanced. And it shows that anyone with who had a desire to learn, or interest to learn something, not because he or she got experience somewhere else. Where do you think the refugee will get an experience from? We don't have that. We didn't have any opportunity. Some of us couldn't even read and write. So denying somebody a job is actually the beginning of the failure in terms of supporting people. And I always do that. I did all kind of work. I went all the way to Newcastle to catch live chicken to be slaughtered in Vayada chicken in Blacktown. I'm living in Blacktown, but I go to Newcastle mainland to pick up catch chicken alive. And those were opportunities that I won't let them go, because I think I never have such opportunity. I never caught a chicken. I might just have to shoot it.
So we were, so my father was a Chinese Vietnamese, he was a business person in Vietnam, was working with the South in terms of supplying them commodities and supply lines. When the South lost the war, he basically got all his assets confiscated, and then his peers, and particularly his peers, were starting to disappear off to re-education camps. So he and my dad made the decision to say, well, you know, it's going to be a matter of time, so we should try and get out. My mother was a very frugal lady, and over the years he'd given her housekeeping money, and she came from a very poor background, so she thought, well, there's far too much money than I over there. So she squirreled it away and bought a little bit of gold here and there. And ultimately that gold was what actually bought our tickets to come out to Australia, because everything else got confiscated. So we, you know, literally 6 of us were on a boat, 29 people came out. The boat was about 7 meters long, so not that different to some of the images you see today. We made our way down through Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia. Our boat sank in Singapore harbour. Again, I'm not sure whether it was by design or by accident, but it sank in the Singapore harbour. We then got taken ashore. We were at a detention camp for a couple of weeks, thinking we've done it, we've made it, we'll now get processed and go somewhere. The Singaporeans, if nothing else, are incredibly efficient. They refloated the boat. And for our troubles, they gave us another 11 refugees to run the boat. I do say the best thing about the boat sinking, though, is it killed all the cockroaches. We tried to get across Australia 3 times. The boat took in too much water and was in the process of sinking. So in the end, my father, who is a smattering of French, wrote a letter to the UNHCR in Jakarta. We then got asked to make our way to Kupang, and we got processed in refugee camp. We were there for 3 months, and then flew into Australia and settled in Melbourne. My parents made what I think in hindsight was a very wise, sort of really profound decision to move to a suburb where there was hardly any refugees, or certainly no Chinese refugees that had been settled down in Ringwood. And to give you a sense of how sparse it was, my sisters were the only Asians in the school. Can you imagine that? And so in our first day of school, as is the traditional norm in Asia, you wear your classic sort of matching tops and bottoms, and off you go to school. And my mother had practiced a lunchbox of noodles. So on that first day, we were the funny kids who had funny names. You didn't speak English, ate noodles for lunch, and wore pajamas to school. So I don't think we had a lot of coaching around. Suffice to say, the first year was pretty difficult, as Deng and others would have experienced. Without language, you really, every day becomes very frustrating. Frustrating for you, and probably for the kids in the class as well. They're trying to communicate and understand where you are, and so the first year ended up in a lot of physical fights. And then as the language built, you work out very quickly, particularly in Victoria, which is where I lived, that if you adopt an AFL team, then you very quickly become part of the tribe.
Not calling it.
So you learn to play cricket, you learn to play football, and then very quickly all colour, religion, everything fades away, and then you become. So I guess that taught me very early that to become part of a community, you need to understand what that community values. And it doesn't have to be sport, it could be all sorts of things. And if you then find a way to hook into that, and then over time bring your own twist and flavour to that, then you start to add to the fabric of that community and the platforms which the community builds. And so I think now, fast forward from 1978 to 2016, just look at this room, you look at the schools that our children or ourselves go to, and so much more diverse, so much more multicultural, and that comes in so many, shows itself in so many different ways. But probably the one thing that hasn't progressed is the maturity around discussion about what multiculturalism and how refugees and the role refugees have to play in Australia and contributing to Australia, not just culturally but economically, in all sorts of ways. And I think the Abbott government, unfortunately, sort of really restricted that discussion and create the right environment and culture. I'm hoping that the Turnbull government and whoever wins the next election starts to really open things up again and allow these conversations to be had and policies that will ultimately, when we fast forward another 20 years, that the progression, the discussion really does mature and progress to the next level.
Thank you. I guess what I'm really interested in is, a lot of your stories are just, to go through these incredibly traumatic experiences and to not only survive but to thrive despite it is incredible to me. And I guess, Aminata, you yourself, you were captured by rebel forces, effectively, held captive for several months. Here and there. And I guess I wanted you to, talk through some of your experiences and I guess how you experience something like that, but still come out of it with this will for survival and this will to succeed. How do you do that?
First of all, I would just say for that, for me, when I was captured, I was taken away in the hands of my dad. So my dad was standing right there and letting go of that. So and so during those several months, that was the most difficult part for me. And because knowing that my dad, he was the most incredible man I've ever met and has protected girls for. That's all he did, protect his girls, and that vision of me being taken away from me, that really breaks me because I know he was breaking it also at that time, and him not knowing if I was alive also. But I think my survival during when I was kidnapped, I had girlfriends with me who I still communicate with overseas, and I think, or people say they will never survive when they go, if they go through that, but I tell them, no, they will, because during those times and during those difficult times, I think for me it was every minute that I wanted to survive. It was just that moment, even though there was ongoing, everything going on around me. If I survived for that minute, or if we slept and see the next moon, I can do the next. I can see the next day. And for the one thing that really kept me going for me was my faith and finding God at that time, because that was the only one thing that I felt that was not human. It was spirit that I could hold on to, and that even through those difficult times, I knew there was something bigger than me. And if I could survive every single day, and he was keeping me, he knew I was capable. He didn't give me those days, surviving those days, without knowing that I could not make it. So I think then coming to Australia for me, and even by the way I got released, coming to Australia for me, that's how I apply to my life every single day. I wake up with being grateful, not just for being in Australia, being alive and being standing, and so achieving what I feel like I've achieved, and especially being a mother now, I know that I know there is something bigger than me, and being here and waking up every morning and coming up with all the what I've done in my life in Australia. I think it's just a matter of making a choice every single day. I think people go through sickness. The people who have cancer is the same. I always say the pain are they're all the same. It's just different situation, or different map, or different road that we all taking, but they're all the same pain. And for me, I can't give. Giving up is really not an option for me. When you tell me I can't, you've given me opportunity to really do something. That's the way I really go through my life. Every time somebody says to me that even building the foundation, there was a lot of knockback, there's a lot of cry, but I just can't picture my life with, I can't, because I have survived through the most horrific thing that I can never even describe or put into words. So if I'm here in Australia, why can't I not? So I tell myself that, and I visualize all the time that I go through, and I know that I can make it. I think that's what really put me, make me do what I want to do in life, and make me strive for more, and make me know that I am really what I say I am, not what people say I am. So I think that's what I believe everybody, or refugees, or every human being that have built a company or built any successful company does. So, yeah.
I think your background and experience is no less harrowing. You know, being a child soldier in Sudan. What kept you going through those dark times?
Madness, I guess. You know, sometimes when you have something happen to you and you don't want to let it go and move on, that's when things will go bad. So you got to understand that the problem, especially what Aminata said, what she went through, if she want to relieve them, and that could hurt her permanently, psychologically, and even physically. Some of the things that people go through, you don't want to relieve them at all. You just want to let it go. And that just came back to a point where I say, you just have to compare where were you back then and where are you now? And then the question was, Aminata said, why can't I do whatever I want to do now? You compare the two, and for me, it was never good for me. It was never, I was always told to sit down, go to the toilet, pick up the gun, clean it up, and sleep. I know nothing other than orders. But here, when I came back, it was almost liberated in all aspects of my thinking. So I think exclusively. I don't have any problem with anyone. I will not be in a war with anyone because I had enough war. So my next step in life was to open a new chapter. And that new chapter is a need for learning, need for the wisdom of people like yourself, and support that I need from everyone else, because really, being in part of my background, you need support, good friends close to you. If you don't get that, I don't know how many people are surviving in this country who don't have good friends, or even a family. Sometimes your own family, which are basically from refugee background, may not be able to assist you at all because they don't know how to live new life. And that's what I say before about the issue of integration. How can they understand anything about this country when they don't know anything? And this is Australia. It's so used to big, and English. Your English was so hard as English in the world when I first started learning. You can't understand a single bit. And I told people several times that I remember putting a bottle of Coca-Cola into a microwave to warm it up so that I can drink warm Coca-Cola and a blow microwave. So there are a lot of other people that went through that stage, and even to the point I nearly electrocuted myself with electric blanket because I didn't know what's really going on. So Australia become worse, and cold weather. For example, some of you are not wearing enough like me, but I'm cold. I worked in a cold storage. I remember it was my first day going there with a friend of mine, and it was that cold. When I look at this Ghanaian friend, he had a mustache and he's all white. And we had a break about 11 o'clock. We left. We didn't come back. So we were fighting different kind of wars, guys, in Australia. Yeah, it became hard and push people to the street, but it takes a strong willpower to be able to identify what is the main purpose why I'm here in this country. If you are able to identify that, and then everything else in your life becomes easy because you're now settling down to this country. You now want to learn something. You want to sit here. You don't want to move back to a country where it is in your mind because some of us are trapped mentally about going back home. I know people that have been here for the last 17 years, as I am, trying to go back home. They haven't gone back home. They're still here. They're trapped. They're not doing anything at all. Even if you go back home, for example, I went back to South Sudan, they call me a foreigner. I'm Australian, so I almost associate myself with other Australians. So you guys need to take that picture very hard and look at it carefully. If we are not Australian, who are we? Because they reject us over there. So we don't want to be in trouble. That's why I have to pick a place where I have to fit in and be able to live my life because I had enough. I had enough about all kind of aspect of life. I just want a new chapter. That's what I did. So I just put everything behind, including the fact that I visit my mom every year. I still think it's important that I visit her every year, but this is home. Make it a home, make life easy, and finding a new home. Well, even kids, they find their own new home when they're grown up from their mothers and go ahead and find their new ways. They're going to be able to be responsible. So that's how I look at it, responsibility that you have to adopt as Australian and the duties attached to that. And of course, you are obligated to just do as much work as you can and just other support in general. I think this is not relevant, but on the use of Social Security fund money to poor family from poor background and not being able to help them in obtaining job is actually causing all kind of problem because there's no transition towards education. People are more left behind because they rely on the Social Security money. They don't know better. So they should be taught better about these issues so that they are not trapped with their children in that mess. I think that is the key. So education, they have to be very broad to help these people. Otherwise, whatever the help we try to offer will be inadequate to the system.
Hana, could you, I guess, talk through, if you fled Iraq, could you kind of talk through some of your experiences and what coping strategies you used to, I guess, reconcile your past in Australia?
Yeah. My life in Iraq actually was good. I was a teacher. I had a happy life, happy family, and then suddenly everything changed. War started, and then everything not safe. The people even they change. So we decided, and we were waiting for years and years. Nothing happened. It's becoming worse and worse. So we decided to come here to Australia. In Australia, it's the life is, of course, better. I was looking forward for my children's future, and really, we made a good decision. My children, they are successful now. They build their future here, and I'm happy in my job also. I'm very happy. When I came, I just wanted to work in the school. The people said impossible. Your English is not good. You don't know how to deal with the students in Australia. They are different from Iran. So I said, no, I will. But I said no. I wanted to work in the school. I don't want to work anywhere. And I tried many places. Actually, I work in the factory as well. I work in childcare. And then when I found this job, I really liked it. And then when I'm helping the refugee as well, I share my experience, my skills with them. And I'm so happy when I see them that they come with no English, and then they study English, they go to high school, they go to, some of them they go to university, some of them they go to TAFE, but all of them they are very successful. They come to visit and they say, look, Miss Deng, we came, no English, even one word, and now where we are, they finish university, some of them they are engineering, some of them lawyers, and very successful. So I'm so proud of them.
Thank you. I guess I'm really also curious to know how your experience motivates and inspires your work, because you're people who've succeeded beyond measure. You know, we could take tips from you, basically. So I guess Hugh, starting with you, how did your experience, you know, of migration and your family's experience motivate and inspire your work? You know, you're a successful CEO, you're an entrepreneur. Like, how did that experience? Yeah, I guess Deng talked about that hunger. You know, what are your success tips? How did you do it?
Just before I go there, I should say that when I was looking at Hannah outside, that she mentioned that her husband was actually quite reticent to come out to Australia. And it was her that really pushed it, so go females. So your children will be very grateful for the decision. Sorry to miss that. If he was sitting up this look, you know, you don't ever necessarily set out to be a role model or try and inspire or come up with, you know, sort of the top 5 tips of what you can do. You just go through life. When you've been handed, you know, there's nothing like survival that really focuses the mind. And all of us, one way or another, have been through a level of trauma. And the trick is, how do you use that for inspiration and not for it to be imprisoned by it? You know, in my own personal case, I had, you know, I saw the sacrifices firsthand that my parents made. You know, he went from being a business person to a factory worker and was in the factories for 25 years, starting at the, you know, he worked at afternoon shift, 3 p.m. through to 11:30 p.m., begged for overtime so he could work through to 4 a.m. and then got home, drove my mum to work at 6 a.m. for the day shift. So that cycle repeated itself, and when you're growing up with that work ethic and that sense of survival to make things ends meet, which is very typical of most migrants, not just refugees, then that instills you a sense of work ethic and what's important. And then the other thing is that, you know, when you have a bad day or what have you, you go, well, you know, we live in country, so how bad can this be? And so again, it tries to keep things in perspective. The other thing is that I think you're always ingrained with a sense of self-reliance. You know, we didn't, you know, in Vietnam there was no sense of welfare. So maybe along the lines of what Deng was saying earlier, that it's quite a dangerous, you know, whilst we know that there's a really important role for state-based welfare, it's a fine line not to become reliant on it. You know, if I could share this story about my auntie and uncle who are 20 years older than me, and they've been working with factories, you know, and their factory got closed down last year, and they've been working in the factory for 40 odd years. And all their colleagues were thinking about, you know, what are they going to do? How are they going to retire? You know, they're all in their 60s. You know, they turned up to our house and sort of said, what are we going to do? So within a week, they bought a cleaning franchise and started cleaning houses. And, you know, that's the sense of contribution they want to make. I think the other thing that I carried personally with me for a while was this sense of gratitude to Australia that accepted our family and so therefore the last thing I wanted to do was waste that opportunity. So if you do want to make a contribution back, and in an economy like ours, you make a contribution back by creating jobs, coming up with ideas, paying taxes and doing all the things that you know, I guess is more directly measurable in a sense. So, and it took me a long time. It probably wasn't to around the Republican movement back in 98, 99 that I started to explore the idea of actually contributing back beyond just indirect activities by, you know, speaking out, getting engaged. I think it was Tampa actually. I think it really was one that probably encouraged a lot of us to start thinking about, well, this is not right. And so it's a combination of gratitude, needing to make a contribution, insecurity about, you know, lots of things, but overall, I think it's a very strong work ethic and keeping whatever challenges and issues you have in perspective. I guess the experiences within that we've all gone through.
You also talked about the power of gratitude. I guess you've experienced, you know, the extreme experiences of human, you know, being in terms of your background. I guess in terms of your Maternal Health Foundation and your activism around women's health, could you tell us a bit about how your background inspired your work in this area?
Well, this really came about really when I had my daughter almost 4 years ago, Serafina, and really coming from Sierra Leone or probably a lot of part of Africa, a lot of part around the world where you hardly hear too much the word maternal, and it's just, you just hear somebody's baby die and that was it. So when I gave birth to my daughter, I almost lost her. And she was very big. She was almost 5 kilos and she was very big for my pelvic. So it was too late. So I think that's where my passion came about. For me, I think I've always been curious. I've always tried to be curious about things. And that's also something I think my husband really pushed me to be at. So when that happened, she was so perfect in my eyes, even though her hand is still injured. I'm still seeing a physio. When we got home, I became really curious about this word that these doctors have been saying to me, like, oh, we try to only get a not really out alive, and she will only want you to survive because you can have another baby. And there was 7 doctors in the room, including my mom and my sisters. So I went on Google just to see this what is this name? What is this name? I don't know what it's called. I've attended a lot of UN events, but I've never really curious about it. I just thought it was just, oh, mothers and babies. And I got really, and then I started to look, and then I find that my country, Sierra Leone, has the highest infant mortality death rate, and I started seeing videos. Well, I was very shocked. Well, I walked in my daughter's room sleeping after decorating all the baby in the room and everything. She's sleeping, and I look at her, and I just felt this disagreement with me that she's the most important person in my life. I feel like I've fulfilled my life in this universe just having her. But she should never be more important than somebody else's child. It doesn't matter where they were born. And I look, and that really just, I'm not a nurse, I'm not a doctor, I don't have any experience in this field, and I just called one of my friends who, she's Australian, who has worked in Sierra Leone before and understand this issue, and just put it on one page. And I just sent it to every single person on my email. Every single person, and everybody just respond positively. And that made me want to give up. But one person took me on board, a friend of mine at the UNSW, Andre. She's a human rights professor, and she goes, okay, I'll put some professors together. And that curiosity is that what get me where I am. I don't have any knowledge. I have incredible people on my board, but being curious, that's what gets me into this field. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I'm learning as I go. For the past 4 years, I feel like if I would have gone to university, I would have just wasted my time because I've learned so much about legal and about finance, about so many things. But that's what really, I just couldn't agree with that. We're living in the 21st century, and I feel like this, being involved with UNHCR, I feel like this is not a war. this is something that is preventable. It is something that we can actually do something. And I hear so much around people saying children are the future. Then I start thinking to myself, well, which one? The one in the Western? So the one in Africa or are not counted, they're not the future. So that just could not sit well with me. And for me, that's the reason of me going back home. I felt like, well, I can go back and give, and that's the reason for my kids to go back and visit, because they are here in Australia, and my husband is not from here, he's from France, and they have this Cree culture. But this is the reason why I don't always go back home, where the mother comes from. I think that is the passion. I encourage all my friends all the time, whatever it is, even if it's a bottle of water, be curious about it. Try to learn about it, because you don't necessarily have to have the knowledge. You can bring the people that have the knowledge and do something about it, which I believe in the world we live, everybody can. And I get a lot of people asking me, what can I do? What can I do? Well, a lot of people think it's about the money. I don't really, and people ask me, how are you going to raise funds? There's so many charities, there's so many things about raising funds. People ask me a lot of questions, but I just feel like, if I have to build a strong fund, if we build a strong foundation, I don't need to worry about raising money. I don't need to convince people. The truth is there, and that will raise itself. And I'm not really trying to save the world. I'm just trying to be part of that contribution. So I think that's really what I found in building this foundation.
Talk about the power of education, about how that empowers you. I guess I wanted to ask you about how your experience as a refugee and coming to Australia, learning how to read and write, how that fueled your passion for law. How do you experience fueled your passion for what you do now?
Well, when I first started my legal career, by the way, it wasn't my idea that I should study law. It was my late father's idea. So I become a little bit good at it. So I enjoyed it a little bit, but it wasn't my idea. But what became my idea, it was when I started to volunteer at the Aminata Community Justice Clinic. We were approached by a client, people from different backgrounds. We were assisting them for free. And I just liked the idea. So what I did was I remained as a volunteer for about a year and a half. And went part-time, my company, the company, not my company, Ulumalu. Then again, my boss didn't like the idea that I keep volunteering and need to bring more money to the firm. So I quit. So that I quit and went to another firm, which gave me a job, and they allowed me to volunteer for 2 days. And they were still grateful enough to pay me for 5 days. And after that, that company went bankrupt. Maybe because of me, I guess. No, it wasn't because of me. So we have to move on, and I moved to Bankstown, and my new boss was doing exactly the same thing. He allowed me to come to Blacktown Court and help people in Blacktown Court, and also to help people in Parliament Community Justice Clinic. So I learned the idea of a justice and fair go and what it means. It's not just a word that you should use in your lip services somewhere. Don't use them. Because I take English word carefully. I got a lot of dictionaries. So I look up those Australian slang and some other stuff, and they really mean good stuff. By the way, I'm from the tribe called Dinka. Let me cut that one off. And I think I call myself fair income Dinka. And it have to be that way. You don't have to be a Superman to help everyone. you could do your job as a person, as an individual, and always keep in mind that where you came from and where I came from. I remember wearing one pair of short like yours for nearly 4 years. All right, one pair. Every time there's a hole on my bum, right there, I can just raise it. I'll go and find a rag and then stitch it behind it. And I just keep doing that every year, every week, because, you have to make more holes when you're sitting on the rocks all the time. And I just look at my short. There was so much lice in it. If you want to go and watch it, you cook it in hot water so that you kill the eggs from the actual lice that actually be laying eggs there. And you're just killing them. And you put it on because that's the only thing you got. Now, when I came to Australia, there's so much opportunities, guys. I don't even think that Australian themselves knows what Australia is all about. I know what it's like. I'm wearing today this stuff here. They're not even mine, but my stuff are real good stuff. They're Australian made too. Yeah, they're Australian made, and that's just my commitment. And among people that you see me in court, I wear Australian made, and I do that for always one reason. We're losing job. Our job are gone overseas. Cheap labor everywhere. We're all silent about it. Things that they're Australian that we know so far, we don't talk about things. We just have to be silent. And when somebody started it and get attacked somehow, and maybe he's alone. So sometimes I feel lonely, but really, I'm not lonely. We got steel, iron ore, taken to China. We sell it for cheap. And when we buy it back, we buy it for more expensive. That's why everything goes up. So what's the difference? I don't even know whether any mathematician would be able to cross the gap between the inequality that is growing. It's growing because we're doing it. So we have to come back to us. What I mean by us is anyone can interpret it the way they want it. But come back to us and let's resolve some of the problems that are actually within our neighborhood, next door neighbor. And I think that would give Australia, that would make Australia a fair country, fair for all, because we're looking after each other's interests, not commercial gain from somebody else, but ourselves. We get human resource to do that. So I'm a human resource, and you guys, and I'm doing that. I was in Western Australia for 4 days. I didn't even work. So I shipped it to somebody else, just doing the same work, not getting paid for it. But I'm doing it for the community a lot. I'm doing the same thing on the 1st to the 3rd to go into Queensland, to go and talk to those youth. And it's just, I'm not getting paid for it, but money-wise, but what I got paid from that is what is priceless. Because I don't think the Australian family that is sponsoring me, I pay them back anything. I haven't paid them back anything. So I owe people debt. I owe my brother debts. I owe everybody debts. So always remember that. You still, even though you don't think that don't owe Australia debt, even if you're born here, you still have obligation and responsibility for this nation, and that go farther than just your mom and dad, sister and a brother. It's bigger than that.
Thanks so much, Deng. Hana, if you could also talk through, I guess, your experience with students and families, assisting them. I guess, how has your experience being a refugee influenced the work that you do, and how do you think it brings, I guess, another dimension to the help that you can offer people as well?
It was hard to do studying, and as a mother of, they were young as well, even my children, they were young, teenager. It was so hard. And the culture is different. My husband always, he was like against me because I was always taking their side. And I had a hard time really to go through this experience. And then I passed that stage, and yeah, it was all right.
I guess I guess also, I mean, I want to ask the panel, you know, there's a lot of, the way in which the refugee debate is framed in Australia is very political, it's very divisive, it's very dispiriting, you know, and I guess, is there, for the last question, is there one thing that I guess your message, you know, to people about what it is to be a refugee? Is there something that you, I guess, want to communicate to the Australian public about what it means to be a refugee? Hana, yeah.
What means to be a refugee?
Yeah.
Just to contribute in this country, and yeah, when I have experience with even with the parents when they come, always they think is the most problem is language and raising children, especially teenager in this country. It's very hard to raise them. Then we give them our experience, my experience, and I bring even the counselor. We talk about how to raise, how to deal with a teenager, how to be a friend with them, and yeah, and then yeah, we share our experience as a refugee. The same when we came, we had a hard time. And some of the families, they have more problems, like gambling, drugs, and these things. And yeah, how to deal with these problems, how to solve these problems. So it's very hard for them. When they come, it's hard also to get a job, especially if they don't know English. And because of social security, they rely on social security. They don't bother to find a job, and if they find, it's very hard. So, but we advise them that they need to find a job. They need to search, to go to search, not to just sit home, and that it's very hard to get a job. And we do workshop for them, and go to the English classes, and yeah, bring people from the Centerlink, from jobs, how to find the jobs on the internet, or yeah, and to have a good life. We say to them like Centerlink money, it's you just survive. You can't continue, and to have a good future. If you want good future to your children as well, you need to work and work hard. Thank you.
Aminata, what's the one message, I guess, you would like to communicate to people about what it means to be a refugee?
I think for me, especially as you said, the media, the way the media portrayed refugees, I think for me, one of the strong thing I try to really educate people when I meet in the street, especially working in fashion and retail, is the idea and the picture they have as a refugee. I think when people see refugee, they forget almost, especially in Australia, because the education of the meaning of refugee is so, I feel like there's not much deeper understanding. First of all, they're human. They're human. And for me, in speaking for myself personally, I never wanted to come to the Western world because I had a good life. It was just a war that happened. And I think the what I say to people when I meet them, for them to have a compassion and understanding. A compassion means really for me, understanding, trying to really not just picture them as a refugee, trying to understand if you were taken overnight to Russia and you never spoke the language and it's cold and you've never experienced that sort of cold, how would you feel if somebody looked at you in a different way? And for me, that's what I want people more to understand, that yeah, Australia is a beautiful country, nobody can dispute that, but people don't just sit and live, or people don't just risk their life to come on a boat for no reason. I would put my children in that same boat if I was running away from something. And I think the understanding of it's really, I feel like there's no deeper understanding in the Australian culture about really why are people coming to Australia, why are they leaving their home, their culture, or do not have any home or sort of identification to come. Yes, it is a beautiful country. Yeah, it is good, but it's so much. When I came, I struggled so much for that a few times. I wanted to go back. I was crying to go back because I didn't have an understanding of jet lag. There was no some of infrastructure about like organization like SSI. So I was just put around Bankstown, and I enrolled myself at school. I had to do all that. And I went to year 9, and I was 20 years old. And I had people talking to kids, young kids talking to me, where maybe I should have been their teacher. And people asking me, oh, you sleep next to a lion. I think even at school, there needs to be an education about refugees, because when somebody comes, my school back home was very disturbed because of the war back and forth. So when I came back, everything was so backward. And I remember him, the other guy that just like he said he was the only Asian. I was the only black in my school, in Princess, and going to Oakley. And that was really, really, I had to convince myself I was very unique. But that was really, really hard, learning a new language, learning different food. So I think it's more understanding. I really think Australia should more understand, but understanding comes from education. They need to be educated, and that means to start from school. That that being friends, even making friends at school was extremely difficult for me. I think student needs to have a bit of education. The migrants that are coming to that school to know a little bit of history, a little bit of background, than just poor people. I think those are the two things. Understanding and just compassion towards refugees. Yes.
Last question, Deng. Going back to that, I hope this facilitates that discussion, about really understanding it's about human stories. And Deng, what's been the reaction to you sharing your story and your story in such a powerful way? How has that been received by people? You sharing your experience.
You mean the good part or bad part? Well, I'm always happy that I share my story, because it will actually give other people an idea about what's really going on in those places like Sudan, South Sudan. If you're not there, and then I'll just ask you or just beg you to not judge me at all. Have a look at the video and then judge me after that. If I were to do anything wrong today, you can judge me, but you can also understand what I went through. And I'm not complaining. I'm not saying that I'm a weak kind of guy that just go down quickly. I don't go down quickly. I'll fight to the end of it. I will live. I love to live. Living is better than being dead. It's better that way. And so, being in my position and be able to have that powerful video there to be able to change people's image about what they say is negative about refugee, thief, the X, Y, Z. It's not the case. You got to be able to look at refugee, and I think I can support Aminata's position. I think it was 2012. I said, well, if I was getting shot, if a person was getting shot and ran away and crossed the sea, that dangerous sea, the dangerous boat, we should actually treat him as a hero, her as a hero, because he just managed to get out of there. So I said that it's actually on there. But again, I'm not trying to advertise for those criminals that take money from people and bring them here. That's where we have to be tough enough, and we have to look at, financial gain or motive for those people that risk people's life. But anybody that risks their life is a genuine refugee. We should welcome them as a hero, and that is important to me, because I would cross that ocean. I don't know how to swim, but I would do it, guys. If I have to be going back to South Sudan, that's what I would say, because war, when we went through the trauma, that's the definition of refugee to me, is a trauma. The definition of refugee to me is somebody who is seeking new beginning. If you watch that movie called Apocalypto or something like that, Apocalypto, just watch it. Kid asked, I think it was his wife, where we going now, that the home was destroyed. He said, let's go and seek new beginning. I don't know exact words, but it's always important for a lot of refugee background to be able to know that we here to seek new beginning, new page, beautiful page, not a bad one, not something that is haunting our head. That is a freedom that we need to achieve, because freedom, you got to liberate yourself from those kind of psychological problems, and also the baggage that is coming with you, and that include all of us to work as a team, because refugees are not perfect. I'm not perfect. They are people with a lot of trauma in them. They need support. And Aminata got a support. She did a great job, marvelous. Maternity death is high. Mortality is just too much in Africa. It's too much. I think South Sudan is the highest recently, if I have read it carefully. But Sierra Leone is sitting there very high, and this is the 21st century. I think we should support her, because she's supporting. Just like you could see a child crying in the street. You won't leave that child crying. You'll be able to run there. Where is your mom? Where is your dad? And you'll be able to ask those questions to the child, because he has been abandoned. So we are in Australia. Don't abandon us. We got a problem. Just a little bit of push. That's all we need. Just a little bit, smart, gentle and firm. And we will be able to succeed in our life. And I think that's what we need as a human being. I see no color, by the way. Go and read my speech. I see no color. I'm colorblind. Yeah, I can fly like a bat in night. In the midnight, later on, happen, but I see no color. I see no color. I see human beings. That's what I see. So, anybody that say something controversial recently, yes, I did. I said something. Maybe you guys gonna ask me. I said anybody that is going through our criminal institution for a long time, 10 years, and as a refugee myself, I don't want to be locked up for 10 years. I was already a prisoner where I was, and I'd rather be free. That is a distinction that I try to provide. People went ahead and take me out of context, but it's important. If you locked up a refugee, you already had a mental illness. How dare you? How are you going to reform that person? You already kill him. You already come with a problem. You put him in another problem. So there are solutions to it. And the solution is to open a dialogue, way forward to help them out. Maybe the environment is bad for them. They could seek a new beginning. Like I said, I'm seeking a new beginning. The new beginning is there. Prison is not a new beginning. That's what I say. It is something dangerous and unacceptable, save for those people that we know they should be getting out of the prison. So that's what I say. So anybody that read anything online about what I say that, and I get reason for it. And the reason is purely factual, and also the rehabilitation for those individuals that are not able to integrate, as you say, integration, but I would say no, are unable to to adapt into our system, this system that is already pre-existent. They don't know this system. It's already old. It's 100 years old, 200 years old. They don't know anything about it. How can you teach the people that have no literacy and they have no support? I'm proud that I have a strength family that support me. But for others that don't, that is my question. What do we do? Lock them up or try to find a solution for it? That's what I say.
Thank you so much to all of you for speaking on the panel. We might quickly just open the panel up to a few quick questions. So if you could, I guess, raise your hand, and then once you're chosen to stand up, say your name, where you're from, and address a brief question to a particular speaker, that would be great. Any questions at all? Yeah.
My name is Khaled. I'm from Miller. I actually went to the same school she teaches at. It's a question any one of you can answer, but just more focused at the majority of the refugees coming are, sorry, nervous with it, men, young men. What advice would you give them about trying to, like you say, integrate or adapt into Australia, and how they can make the most out of their time here, seeing as they are painted as a big threat to Western society?
My advice to any young immigrant like myself is, first, you need to understand where I could have disarmed him easily. But what is the point of disarming him? What if the gun went off and killed me? So we should not get ourselves in a risk. Try to explore the risk, because Australia is established state already long time ago. You need to be able to learn something. Education is the key, and not skipping it. If you are not able to read and write properly, well, don't watch Wiggly like I used to do. All right, go and watch Dora Explorer. Do that. It helps you out somehow. But if you want to engage in your friends, the cool guy, they like this, they will not be your friend when you are actually in the cell, the police cell. You'll be calling a lawyer like me, say, hey, can you get me out? But those friends will not get you out. So try to stay away from radar. Know that you are not yet a citizen, that's one. You're just a permanent resident. And of course, even a citizen, your rights can be forfeited if you commit a serious offense. That's the key. So all the rights are not the same. There's a state which is sitting higher than your liberty as an individual. But if you are, putting everybody at risk, getting me scared, I got a problem with you. I don't want to have nightmares, especially a person like me who had nightmares for over 7, 8, 9 years. I don't want another one. So they want to put the gun in my belly and try to rob me with money. Who did actually? You want to give me further nightmare. So people like that should be locked up. If you call me as a lawyer, well, too bad I'm a witness to the crime. So these are important things that we have to understand. It's work, youth, you got to be able to do things while you're still young. Don't wait till you're old like me and try to catch up, because the time will never catch up. It's a hard thing to catch up. Catch up with time. Think that you have had so much disadvantage of you and use them angrily for all of it. See somebody opportunity, try to go by, catch it if you can, and take it with you and learn it. That's what I think. That's the way forward. That's my advice. Just learn, teach yourself new way. You don't need to go to university. You could go to tertiary education type, get a job, be able to have the skill in your hand. It's about that security that you create for yourself. I don't want to be giving something, okay? I'm not disabled. Even the disabled people, you see them in a wheelchair doing an attempt. So where do we put ourselves in there? So in a disability that is invented by a person himself, well, you should enjoy that, because we're not going to give it. We're not going to come back later and say, well, we'll rewind it back. Time is too late. Just learn. Just do something for yourself. Something for yourself. I think that's the key. New life.
I'm from Australia, from UNHCR, and I just have a question. I guess any of you guys can answer. How do we start to change the perception of refugees in Australia from negative to positive?
All right. I will answer that question. All right. It's again a controversial point. I don't know. It's being recorded, so no problem. There are so many refugees in this country that have not settled at all. They need more attention by government, by us as a community. We haven't adequately addressed their problem, the current one, the one that are existing in this country. So the problem of further, if I can extend that further, if we bring in more refugees, and we haven't even done our job here, and the number of refugees and recent migrants are quite high in prison, then why are we bringing more to lock them up? So the full stop is, let's resolve the problem currently we have, including the problem with indigenous people, housing, other things that we need to do. And when we are capable enough as a nation to take more people, yes, we can take more people in after addressing the current issues. Homelessness is so high in people from the refugee background. Homelessness, you see a mother with 3 children, they're homeless. So how do we bring in 2 more people when we know this mother is actually homeless already? We have no support. So I'm against the increase of new refugee, because we're not going to keep them out of stock. We want to give them a fair go. We've got to give them a good go. That's what Australia should be proud of, being able to help them, not bring them here. I don't know what reason. I don't know. So I think that will fix the perception of refugee, because we are now dealing with the problem at first hand and be able to have a transition. And maybe they will be able to teach the newcomers about how to live in this country. That will be their new task. So that is, I think that's how I should approach it if I were the government.
If I should add to that, I think for me, what I've noticed, as you said, how can we change it from negative to positive? I think the media has a lot to do with that, because these days we all get our information through media, and it's the way the media portray what refugee is. I think, and that also is part of the government's work. I think if the media had more education about really what their needs are, and feed that to the Australian community or the Australian people, I think there'll be more understanding and there'll be more positive outcome from that. Because when I came to Australia, I had a spiritual family, Australian, who took me as their family, and that helped me a lot, because I had somebody that was one of these people who were the Australians, who gave me a lot of education about really the country that I was living in, and welcome me in their home and not look at me so much as a refugee. I think the media really is the key to really change that negative to positive, because everybody, when you turn on social media, when it comes to a refugee coming out through a boat, a lot of people are saying negative things because there's no education, and the media just put this boat there of people dying, or giving the reason why, how come they travel here unsafely, or why is the process the way it is. So I think for me, really, that's where the focus should be, for people to have more education and more understanding about to change that. Yeah.
Thank you. We're running a bit over time, so we might wrap it up for tonight. But I guess one last huge round of applause for Deng Adut.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And again, Hana, Aminata, Deng, and Huy. Where I suppose the word that sticks in my mind out of the conversation this evening has been opportunity. And I think through your stories, you've demonstrated how you seized every opportunity that's come your way and not let it go. And I guess there's a challenge for us as services, as people, as neighbours, as good citizens to try and understand that and try and extend that opportunity to refugees and I guess to our fellow neighbours in their everyday lives. So again, we find your stories incredibly inspiring. It's great to hear it directly from you, what your experiences have been and where your journey to where you are now. And we thank you very, very much for sharing that with us tonight. Just in closing, I'd like to remind people that come along to all our Speaker Series events. You can go online at the SSI website, www.ssi.org.au. Register online, and that way you'll be kept in touch in terms of the upcoming events. So we hope to see you at our next Speaker Series event in May. And I just want to say, on behalf of the SSI board, the staff, and the many volunteers and people associated with the organisation, again, thank you very, very much for coming out this evening. We've really enjoyed your company, and thank you. Thank you to Sarah. I'm sorry.